Thus, the reason for the question, what remains, is due solely to the fact that life goes right on without any experience of life, being, soul, energy, no experience at all. If the bodily senses did not remain, there could be no verification that a physical body remains at all or even exists. Had it not been for Jesus' terrible physical condition following the death of his whole person, he could have continued to live on earth, though totally changed. No longer having any experience of life, soul, or God, his experience would have been that of the walking dead, which may well have been his experience. It is because the body continues to exist, however, there is the question of its true nature. How does it live on earth with no experience of life, a soul, God, or anything known? If man had any idea of the true nature of what remains beyond death, there would be no question to ask, and no need for any revelation to answer the question. As long as man thinks he knows the answer, then he truly never died. The true nature of what remains, goes on existing, can only be revealed, and it is this revelation that is the resurrection. Without this revelation, there is no answer to what exists beyond death, what life this may be, nor any knowledge of the true essence of human nature in its eternal oneness with God. So the revelation we know as resurrection is the answer to the true nature of what remains beyond death, beyond all experience of life and being. Resurrection is one thing and one thing only. It is the revelation of the real Christ. Christ is not who remains, but the true nature of what remains. At the same time, however, it is equally the revelation of the incarnation, for the two, resurrection and incarnation, can never be separated. They are two sides of the same coin. Thus, resurrection is the ultimate revelation of the whole mystery of Christ, revelation of the truth of God's eternal oneness with man, how it works, even how it even exists. So first and foremost, resurrection is a totally unique, one-of-a-kind revelation. And this revelation of the real Christ is exactly what is exactly what resurrection is, and all it is. This is not the revelation, I am Christ, or Jesus is Christ. It is not the revelation of any person, but of man's one essential nature, eternally one with God. So now, let us go over what is learned from this revelation. It reveals there is something in man that goes right on living only without any experience of life or being. Thus, strictly speaking, apart from death of a person, there is no such thing as death. Once the body's physical senses have ceased to function, however, then there is no way to see or feel any physical body whatsoever. While people think a soul remains, yet with no experience of life or being, there is no experience of a body or soul. Basically, the experience of body and soul can never be disconnected. Without one, there could be no experience of the other. The body that lives on or remains beyond person is not the body people think they know or experience on this earth. As a non-experiential, it could be regarded as a formless body, having no earthly form. To understand this, it might be helpful to recall the epithet cosmic Christ, the Logos' oneness with matter, in this case, oneness with man's body. Resurrection, then, is not the revelation of the soul's eternal life, but of the body's eternal oneness with God. Though not the body, man knows and sees on this earth. Number 2. Sorry if I forgot to say number 1. Number 2, bottom of page 369. The resurrection also reveals there is no separation of body and soul. There is no soul popping out of a body and later popping back in. This ancient myth is false. John of Damascus had it right. When Christ died, the Logos was never separated from either the body or the soul of Christ, but maintained their oneness in the Logos, maintained the oneness not only of God and man, but of body and soul, neither of which can be separated from God. One reason there is no separation of body and soul is because the Logos and Spirit cannot be separated. The Logos one with the body, the Spirit one with the soul. Number 3. Resurrection also reveals it is not an event that takes place down the road hundreds or thousands of years after one dies. Following death of the sensory body, man is immediately out of space and time, has no awareness and experience of it. Thus, resurrection can never be an event or revelation in time and space. No time element can be attached. That it directly follows the death of the body is what Christ revealed. Christ being the way, it goes for every human being. Death, of course, is the end of the world for everyone. Should there ever be some cataclysmic ending, no one will be around to talk about it anyway, so there is no use conjecturing about such an event. Just as death was the end of this world for Jesus, so it will be for everyone. Resurrection has never meant a return to earthly life. Footnote 1. In Jesus' lifetime, those God brought back to life all died again anyway. This fact should alert us that resurrection is other than man's regaining normal functions. This is not the true nature of resurrection. As said, the resurrection Christ revealed was not the Egyptian or Jewish understanding of it. The idea there can be any kind of eternal life in a material world, and thus in a physical body, is just another grim fairy tale. To think trillions of people are now waiting around to get their bodies back is, quite frankly, bizarre, absurd. If souls are with God already, then who needs a sensory body that cannot see God anyway? Since nothing so distracts from seeing God as the senses, what possible good would they be in heaven? Footnote mine, the opposite of sensory knowledge would, I think, be intuitive knowledge. And it is not just the senses that cannot see God, neither can the intellect, attached as it is to the senses. While some think the higher intellect is the eye of the soul, all this eye sees is itself. It is only the eye of the spirit that can see and know God. The eye with which I see God is the same eye with which God sees me. Recall Aristotle's other soul that he defined as that which eternally contemplates God, the beatific vision. This is no eye of the intellect. The true nature of death, then, is not just the cessation of bodily functions, the medical definition of death, but also the cessation of the soul's function or faculties. While these functions were needed to live an earthly life, they were never created for eternal life in God, where they are of no use whatsoever. Maximus the Confessor affirms as much. Quote, "Our deification, our mystical resurrection, is the complete stripping away of the natural actions of sense and mind by the presence of the Spirit who directly transforms the entire body altogether into something more divine." End quote. The senses serve only to perceive material objects, and material objects do not exist in heaven. Thus they would be useless in heaven, eternal life in God. If the senses cannot see God in this life, what makes people think they will see God in the next? People who think they can eternally see God and still live on earth have never seen God. See God and die is the truth of it. To think eternal life is anything remotely like man's mortal life on earth is not just naive, but absolutely impossible. Number 4. Altogether, resurrection is far more than the revelation of a formless body's oneness with the eternal form of God, or Logos. More than the inseparable oneness of body and soul, even more than man's eternal life with God. Above all, resurrection is the revelation of the whole mystery of God's eternal oneness with man, and how God brought it about, the incarnation, that is. Resurrection is equally the revelation of the incarnation, and that one is the reverse of the other. Both begin and end at the same point, in God, that is. Thus, both are the same revelation. The eternal form of God, Logos, eternally one with the form of man. This is the truth of Christ. So resurrection is the revelation of a great truth, the truth of God and man, and how even man's body partakes in the eternal form of God.